transformative contributions to livestock welfare and a lifetime of advocacy for people with autism and their contributions to society. I desire to confer upon you the honorary degree of Doctor of Science, and to express the hope that we shall continue to be enriched by your wise counsel for many years to come.
Take my notes away from me. I'll need to have my notes. And I want to say to people with autism, get out and make a contribution. A lot of people don't realize that Einstein was probably autistic, no speech until age 3. About Steve Jobs, Michelangelo, Thomas Edison, and a lot of others. Now, I did not speak until I was age 4. I want to thank all the good teachers I had. Started with my speech teacher, my mother getting me out, doing lots of things. I grew up lots of hands-on activities. In fact, one of the worst things the schools have done is taking hands-on activities out of the schools. In my work with livestock handling equipment, in fact, there's 2 plants in Canada that have my center track restrainer system. I worked with people in skilled metalworking shops that were probably autistic, and they had 20 patents each, and the equipment was sold around the world. What worries me today is some of these kids are ending up in the basement playing video games when they ought to be out building things. As I travel around, I'm appalled at the amount of escalators and elevators that are not working. They don't have anybody to fix them. I was just looking at one of the sites yesterday where they had the escalators all torn up. There was nobody there working on them. And I want to see the kids that have different kinds of thinking get out there and be successful. And one of the things you got to do with these kids is get them out doing things. Too many parents overprotect these kids. I'm seeing fully verbal kids who have never gone shopping by themselves. See, the problem with the autism label is it goes from Einstein to somebody who can't dress themselves and has to have a lot more supervision. And people are getting too locked into the label. So how did I end up in the livestock industry? Because I didn't come from a livestock background. I came from a suburb background from Dedham, Massachusetts. I got exposed to cattle and horses when I was a teenager. I can't emphasize enough. Kids get interested in stuff they get exposed to. So if they get fixated on something like cars, you want to broaden that fixation. Broaden the fixation, don't try to stomp it out. Now there's 3 different kinds of thinking you can have in autism. And in autism you tend to get extreme thinking. I'm an extreme object visualizer. Everything I think about is a picture. So the kinds of things that I'm going to be good at is animals, because they live in a sensory-based world, mechanical stuff, and art, and photography. Now another kind of autistic is a mathematical kid. They think in patterns. So if you've got a little 8-year-old that's super good at math, move them ahead. Don't hold them back. Move them ahead. And then of course you have the verbal thinker who thinks in words. Now I didn't know that people thought in words until I was in my 30s. This is something I discussed in my book, Visual Thinking. Now one of the problems that a lot of people with autism can have, and also other learning problems like dyslexia, is sensory oversensitivity. Well, I'll tell you one thing that sometimes works. If a kid's afraid of the vacuum cleaner, let the kid turn it on and off. When they control something like a leaf blower, it might go from the most feared thing to the thing that's the most fun to play with. All right, medical stuff, that can be really, really scary. I used to be terrified of airplanes. Well, now I got a chance when I was in my 20s to fly in the cockpit of a cargo plane flying heifers to Puerto Rico. You have to make it interesting. And when you make something interesting, then it's less scary. Scanners are super interesting. Let the kid get copies of the scans. Now, there's nothing to make needles in string. They're just bad. But no surprises. And then another issue that some individuals can have that have autism, dyslexia, or ADHD is sensitivity to flicker on LED lights. I'll tell you how to find that out. Film the room in slow motion. Now let's look at some of the accommodations that you might actually have to have. I need to have a pilot's checklist, which I didn't have for this meeting, of the order of events. That's why I didn't know where to stand. And if I have to learn something like closing out the cash register at Walmart, let me just have a pilot's checklist of the steps. That's what I would have to have. That would save a lot of jobs. But I want to see these kids that are different get out and do something really constructive. I've worked with a whole lot of people on complicated metal work that were object visualizers. Oh, there's a lot of physicists that are probably autistic. And the thing is, we need the skills. We need the skills of the people who think differently. Because autism in the mildest form is probably just a personality variant. But then it can go all the way to where there's epilepsy and other medical problems on top of the autism. So, just want to end up and say, the world really does need all the different kinds of minds. Thank you.
Such a great message and such a good reminder that the world does need all of us who think differently. People who think the same will just end up with the same results. So thank you so much for your message today. The next step